Detective Grace Bennett arrived in the small town of Ashford with the hum of the morning fog still clinging to the air. A town where nothing ever seemed to happen, a place where everyone knew everyone, and the idea of a crime was almost laughable. It was a town that had always taken pride in its tranquility, its simplicity. But all of that changed when they found the body. The victim was Olivia Parker, a beloved high school teacher who had been working at Ashford High for nearly 2 decades. The town's citizens described her as kind, nurturing, and someone who could do no wrong. When her lifeless body was found in the woods behind her home, it shocked the tight-knit community to its core. She had been murdered, the circumstances brutal and unexpected. Grace had been called in to investigate, but she had no illusions. Small towns like this had their secrets, and she was about to find out just how deep those secrets went. The first thing she did was speak with the town's mayor, Harold Jenkins, a man who had known Olivia for years. He spoke highly of her, emphasizing her role in the community as both an educator and a mentor. She was the heart of this town, Mayor Jenkins said, his voice wavering slightly. I just don't understand who would want to hurt her. She had no enemies. But Grace could already feel the walls closing in. The mayor's grief was genuine, but there was something in his eyes that didn't sit right. It was the way he avoided eye contact, the way he seemed a little too eager to paint Olivia as a saint. People like him always had their own stories to hide. The next stop was the school. The principal, Melanie Foster, greeted Grace with a forced smile that barely masked her nervousness. She led Grace to Olivia's classroom, where the detective began combing through the teacher's desk and personal belongings. Olivia's reputation as a beloved figure was unquestionable, but Grace couldn't help but wonder, was she too perfect? Was there more to Olivia's life than met the eye? As Grace scoured the room, she found a series of notes tucked into the back of Olivia's desk drawer. At first glance, they appeared to be nothing more than personal messages to students, reminders about assignments and upcoming events. But one note caught Grace's attention. It was from a student, a senior named Adam Richards, who had written about his admiration for Olivia's kindness. The words, though innocuous on the surface, hinted at a deeper emotional attachment. Grace tucked the note into her jacket pocket, her mind racing. She had learned enough in her career to know that when something appeared too perfect, it usually wasn't. And Olivia Parker's life was beginning to look like one big, well-crafted lie. The autopsy confirmed what Grace had feared: Olivia's death was no accident. She had been strangled, her body left discarded in the woods as though she were just another piece of trash. The forensic team found traces of Adam's DNA on her skin, but it didn't necessarily mean he was the killer. It could have been anything, an innocent touch, a friendly conversation. Still, it was enough to make Grace suspicious. She needed to talk to Adam. When Grace arrived at Adam's home, his mother greeted her with a stiff smile. Adam, a tall, wiry teenager with a mess of dark hair, sat in the corner, his eyes wide with anxiety. His mother, Lorraine, hovered near him, as though trying to shield him from Grace's questions. I don't know why you're here, Detective, Lorraine said, her voice sharp. Adam had nothing to do with this. He's a good boy. Grace raised an eyebrow. I didn't say he did, but I'd like to ask him a few questions, if you don't mind. Lorraine hesitated but eventually stepped aside, allowing Grace to approach her son. Adam's hands were trembling, and he avoided looking Grace in the eye. Adam, Grace said softly, trying to put him at ease. I need you to tell me about your relationship with Ms. Parker. Adam swallowed hard, his eyes darting nervously between Grace and his mother. I didn't have a relationship with her. She was my teacher, and she was really nice. That's all. Grace studied him carefully. You sure about that? He nodded vigorously. Yes. I swear, I never hurt her. Grace could tell he was telling the truth, or at least half of it. There was more to the story than he was letting on. She just had to figure out what it was. Over the next few days, Grace continued her investigation, speaking with other students, faculty members, and townsfolk. The more people she spoke to, the more she realized that Olivia had been more than just a teacher. She had been a woman with her own demons, someone with deep secrets hidden beneath a polished exterior. Her interactions with some of the male students were strange, bordering on inappropriate. Grace learned that Olivia had been particularly close to one of her former students, a young man named Jake Marshall, who had recently returned to town after a stint in rehab. Olivia had taken it upon herself to help Jake get back on his feet, but the relationship seemed to have become more than just a mentor-mentee dynamic. Grace couldn't help but wonder, had Olivia been trying to atone for something in her past? Or was she, too, a victim of circumstance? When Grace finally spoke with Jake, she found a man broken by his past, struggling to stay sober and keep his life together. His eyes were haunted, and when he spoke about Olivia, his voice cracked. "She was always there for me," Jake said, his voice shaking. "She believed in me when no one else did. I don't know why anyone would hurt her. She never deserved that." Jake's grief seemed genuine, but something in his demeanor struck Grace as off. He seemed too rehearsed, too careful with his words. She pressed him further, but he refused to open up about his time with Olivia. All he would say was that she had been a guiding light for him, someone who had helped him through his darkest moments. But had it been enough to save him? As the days wore on, Grace uncovered more and more details about Olivia's life, details that painted a far darker picture than the town's citizens had been willing to admit. Olivia had been involved in a secret relationship with a married man, a local contractor named Richard Ward. His wife, a woman named Karen, had been a close friend of Olivia's. But Grace soon discovered that the friendship was strained, and Richard's affair had not been as secret as he had hoped. Was this love affair the motive behind Olivia's murder? Grace's suspicion grew, and as she delved deeper into the lives of Ashford's residents, she realized that nearly everyone in the town had something to hide. There were whispers of financial troubles, hidden pasts, and repressed desires. Ashford was a town built on secrets, and Olivia Parker had been at the center of them all. In a final, desperate bid to uncover the truth, Grace confronted Richard Ward. He was quick to deny any involvement in Olivia's death, but Grace could see the guilt in his eyes. He had lost control of his emotions, and the facade he had built around his affair with Olivia was beginning to crumble. "I didn't kill her," Richard shouted, his voice desperate. "But I know who did. It was Karen. She found out about us, about everything. She killed Olivia." Grace felt a chill run down her spine. The pieces were falling into place, and it was worse than she had ever imagined. Karen, a woman who had always been so friendly, so accommodating, had hidden a darkness inside her. She had found out about her husband's affair, and in a fit of rage, had decided to take matters into her own hands. When Grace confronted Karen, the woman's face twisted with anger and fear. She had never expected to be caught, but she couldn't deny the truth. "Yes," Karen admitted, her voice cold and empty. "I did it. I killed her. Olivia had everything I wanted, everything I didn't have. I couldn't let her take my husband away from me." The case was closed, but Grace knew that Ashford would never be the same. Beneath the surface, the town's seemingly perfect image had been shattered, and the truth about Olivia's life, her relationships, her flaws, and her mistakes, had come to light. In the end, the murder of Olivia Parker was a reminder that no one is truly innocent, and even in the quietest of towns, darkness can lurk just beneath the surface.